Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, all you hims, hers, theys, and thems. Welcome to this edition of the OTT.X Wednesday Webinar Series. I'm Eric Hansen, and on behalf of the whole team at the good ship OTT.X, we are thrilled you're joining us today. It's a privilege to share with you the experience, insights, and information from the people that are shaping the OTT industry. Fast and ad-supported video have swiftly become the topic du jour among those in and following the OTT industry. And while growing advertising revenue can indeed represent a valuable component of commercialization strategies, it's important for distributors to continue to look creatively at other opportunities to maximize the value of their content and viewership. To help us gain a fresh perspective on monetization options, additional revenue streams, and to learn how to integrate these options into existing frameworks, we are delighted to welcome to the OTT.X webinar stage the VP of Corporate Development at Bright SDK, Ariel Shulman. Ariel, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Let me see if I can share my screen here correctly this time. No, this is not the right thing, right? I don't know what you're seeing, guys. 1 second.
It says you're sharing your screen. You know, we did have this working. We rehearsed this, everyone.
We did, yeah.
This Zoom thing is catching on, Ariel. Maybe you should give it a try.
Actually, I'm more of a Google Meet guy myself, but
Is that right?
Everyone should be.
They all have their place.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, there it is.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so thank you, everyone. Sorry for this little hiccup here. So we are here to talk about a new monetization solution that can help you make more money from your OTT apps, increase customer loyalty, lifetime value, retention, all of those good things. And this is something that's called the Bright SDK. It's actually been running for almost 5 years. In the last year, we got into OTT and video apps, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So Bright SDK is really a kind of a different animal from what you know in terms of monetization. You're all familiar with SVOD or AVOD. This is a monetization tool that's very different. So unlike traditional methods, there are no ads. We don't display any ads. It doesn't disrupt the viewing experience in any way. And this means that you can actually continue monetizing the way you do now and have an additional revenue stream on top of what you are making without interfering with the user experience at all. This is an opt-in solution. People need to opt into this. And if they do that, they need only to do that once, so to opt in once. From the moment they give their consent, you basically have lifetime monetization. So for the lifetime of the app, every day that they use the app, you will get paid. Oh, I just forgot to say something. If you have any questions, please feel free to jump in. We have Eric here. He'll be monitoring the chat, and he can help us with the questions. No issue there whatsoever. So as I said, this has been in operation for a long time. It's used by hundreds of partners. We're going to talk about Bright Data as well. Bright Data is not a startup company. We're a large company. Specifically for Bright SDK, we paid in 2023 alone over to $10 million already. So this is again not a new operation. So the highlights are as follows, and we're going to get into the details. The benefits are these. So we're talking about something between 2 to 3 cents extra revenue, and the extra is underlined because again, this is on top of what you're making today. So every active day in the US will give you 2 to 3 cents extra, and this applies to 100% of the users. So unlike ads, which have fill rates potentially variable by country, every user is monetized. As we said, this is an opt-in solution, but about 70% of people opt in because they see some value. And there are no ads that are shown. This works in the background. We have models that can work nicely with AVOD, SVOD, and fast versions of video apps. We're going to get maybe a little bit deeper into what we do, but just to put this front and center, this is totally legit, GDPR, CCPA, COPPA compliant. There is absolutely no personal data collection at all. There's no attribution. All the users are identical to us. We don't do any kind of tracking. We don't do any automatic content recognition. Those are some of the things that you guys do on the video side. None of that takes place. We work silently in the background and completely anonymously. Users actually don't see or don't feel anything. So we're going to go through some examples of Bright SDK and what it is and how our partners actually leverage it in their apps. And we're going to be focusing mostly on video apps so that we keep this relevant for you guys. These are some of the partners that we have. We have hundreds of partners. I highlighted in yellow here some of the partners that you might be familiar with, Otera, Castify, OTT Studio. There's many more small publishers. All of them have already integrated Bright SDK as a part of their monetization methods in the different apps. The operating systems that we support are basically everything. So we're talking about Apple TV, LG WebOS, Roku, Fire TV, Samsung. I probably forgot some, but pretty much all the operating systems are supported. The concept is the following. Users are presented with what we call the opt-in screen. And we're going to see some examples of this opt-in screen. And they get some sort of value in exchange for opting in. In this example, this little animated GIF that we have going on here, you see that once the users install the app, this app Movie Zone gives them the option of seeing less ads or more ads. If they choose to see less ads, they are opted into our SDK. Basically, they give their consent. This dialogue is displayed only once. Once the users have given their consent, the monetization that we're talking about works in the background, does not interfere with the app users in any way, doesn't show anything on the screen. And the app and the publisher can continue monetizing in any way they did so far. So this is, again, additional revenue. Specifically, this is what you're seeing here is on a Fire TV device. So in this example, the publisher is offering fewer ads, and we're going to see how you can actually offer fewer ads, but still make more money than you did with the previous number of ads. So this is one example. Another example here is some premium features. So this is actually on Roku, what you're seeing here. And this publisher is saying, if you allow Bright Data to do what it needs to do, which is to use the free device resources and IP address to collect public web data, I'm going to explain what all of this means. They will be getting some free content that they didn't get before, and they will not have a daily streaming limit. The idea is that users are presented with an offer. We want, from our side, to see informed consent. All of these things add up to about 70%, so 70% conversion or opt-in by the users. And the reason for that is that they actually get value. They get something that's valuable to them. It could be fewer ads, it could be more time to see content, etc. But it's about 70%. The dialogue can be configured to look any way you want. These are some examples, much more entertaining from mobile games. You can see that the common theme is that there are always two buttons, agree or disagree, earn reward or not. There is some text from us to get this character, to get something. You allow Bright Data to use your device, free resources, and IP address to download public web data while using the app without collecting any personal information. And of course, users can opt out anytime. So these are three examples. We have our own default screen, but people are free to design anything they want. We have a very strict compliance process because we want to run a very nice, clean operation. So we check everything, but in general, you can do whatever kind of design that fits the app's color scheme and DNA, etc. This here is an example of an app called FreeVOD. Okay, and what these guys are doing, you can see here, I enlarged the text on the bottom left here. Basically, they're saying, if you accept, you can enjoy the first 25 minutes of every video ad-free. Again, if you opt into Bright SDK, people can say no, show me the normal pre-roll method, or they can see fewer ads. Again, on this, we see something like 70% conversion. And I want to break down this process maybe a bit more in a bit more organized way. So the normal model of say AVOD typically is when you click play on a video, okay, you start with a pre-roll or maybe a few. After that, the content starts playing, and after maybe 8 minutes or 10 minutes, it doesn't really matter, it depends on your decision. There's some mid-rolls, and the content continues, etc., etc. So this is what obviously people are used to. I think we can all agree it's not fun to click play and just want to watch a movie and then to have to sit through a couple of pre-rolls. It's not fun. And this is where we can come in, because for publishers who choose to do this, and this is just an example, what the flow can look like is the following. It can look like this. You click play, you get instant playback of your content, which is, in terms of user experience, great. Okay, so it's something that people appreciate. And you start showing mid-rolls a little bit later. Okay, in the example that we saw earlier, you can see 25 minutes of content nonstop, and then the mid-rolls start playing. This has a very nice positive effect on the retention rates and on basically satisfaction from from viewers, because it's just a much nicer experience than to have to sit down through ads before you even started. To be very clear, because users have opted into the Bright SDK, even though the first ad slot it will not play, the net revenue for this little time period is actually more than what you had before. So you get, on one hand, improved user satisfaction, happier users, maybe better reviews, higher retention, higher lifetime value, etc. You may be even seeing some possible benefits on SVOD conversion. If you're giving some content for free and they like the app, you may basically have more engagement and you could end up with more people subscribing. That's also something that we see occasionally. But the net revenue ends up being same or better. And the reason for that is, again, is Bright SDK that runs while the app is running. Something that's very interesting and very unique to Bright SDK is that on some operating systems, specifically Fire TV and LG WebOS, and coming shortly on Samsung, our SDK is given permissions by the user to run in the background. This means that our monetization continues even if the app itself is not running. So let me repeat that, because it's very, very important. If someone installs your app and they give their consent to the dialogue that we saw earlier, and then on day one they watch some video, and of course they monetize with us, and then they monetize with some of the ads that you'll be showing inside the app. That's great. Day two, even if they don't launch your app, because our process runs in the background, we will count that as an active day, and we will pay you for that active day, even if your app was not launched during that day. So this has a very significant impact, positive impact on monetization. Effectively, it means that your install base is what monetizes on these platforms, as opposed to the actual users who fire up the app. Very important, very different than Roku and Apple TV, where the app must be running. Of course, no one makes, there's no way to make money when the app is not running using ads. Obviously, if the app is not running and people are not watching content, they won't be seeing ads, you won't be making anything. With Bright SDK, on these two operating systems and more to come, you can actually monetize even when the app is not running. Does anyone have any questions so far? This is the time to put them in the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Ariel. While we wait for some folks to drop some questions in the Q&A bin, it's extremely interesting. I have to say, getting paid to essentially, well, really, in the case of Amazon and LG, in this case, you don't even have your app running. It kind of seems like a no-brainer. One of the things I'm interested in, you mentioned ads. You can sort of opt out of ads. Are there other rewards that you're seeing some of your customers? It seems like maybe you could earn some points, and you mentioned games and things, but it seems like there's a ton of real innovative ideas that could be out there that maybe you have some examples of some of those.
I do. So let's say that you're offering an SVOD subscription service. What you can do, you can say, for example, opt in to Bright SDK and receive 3 days of free, trial. Now, for those 3 days, as opposed to giving a free trial for nothing, you're actually monetizing those 3 days. Another way of doing this is to say, hey, here's an SVOD service. there's a series with 15 episodes, you can play one episode for free without subscribing if you opt into Bright SDK. Now, of course, on operating systems such as Amazon Web and WebOS, the mere act of opting in means that you'll stop monetizing even when your app is not used. So that's again something that's very powerful. You can open up high resolution streaming as opposed to, let's say, low resolution streaming. Anything that users will perceive as value is can be exchanged in exchange for this opt-in. Now, it's important to stress, as part of Bright SDK and Bright Data's very ethical approach to doing this, there must be some sort of value that's given to the user. Okay, they get something. It's not like that's why there's a very dedicated opt-in screen. This is not something that's buried in a determined condition somewhere. It's front and center. It's very clear, and we want people to actually get something in exchange for their informed consent. That's also why we see the conversion rate so high.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of getting paid to watch movies and television as a viewer in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, you get something that you would normally not get in exchange for basically something that doesn't hurt you, because everything that we talk about here, as I mentioned, runs in the background, doesn't interrupt the user, the playback, doesn't introduce any glitches or anything like that. It's just kind of under the hood. So it's not something that, from a user perspective, causes them any pain. It's very different from
in the background. Can we talk about that just a minute? And maybe you're getting into this a little more detail in the next part of your presentation. In the background, what is it that's happening?
Okay, so
this
is a good segue to the next part of the presentation. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
so
we'll talk to you about it.
Bright SDK is part of a company called Bright Data. Now, Bright Data is the #1 by far largest company in a segment that's called public web data. Okay, and I'm going to go into details to explain basically why is it that we have the Bright SDK, and why is it that we want to have additional partners to implement Bright SDK in their apps and enjoy this monetization that we're talking about. So the company, just to give you some perspective, is not a startup company. We've been around for more than 10 years. We are way past $100 million in revenue. We're profitable, we're growing. We're more than 400 employees worldwide. We have thousands of customers, including many Fortune 500 customers. You're going to see some of the logos very soon. And the public web data, and I want to just explain this very clearly, is what we call openly accessible information on the internet. So public web data is just stuff that's on the web, on websites, freely available to anyone without a username or password or anything like that. Basically, you can find it on Google. Okay, so it's just available to anyone. And it's something that all companies in the world use in many ways. I'm going to give some examples so that you understand the need, or the kind of the money flow here. So who pays Bright Data? And that enables us to pay you, the publishers. So everyone uses this public web data. And the reason we need you guys, so to speak, is that we need very large networks of millions of devices or millions of users to basically distribute this huge load over a large network. We, just to give you some perspective, we do more requests per day than Google, okay? In terms of this public web data collection that we are doing. So partnering with app developers is what gives us this big network that we need to collect this web information. This is not user information, it's web information, collected at scale for these large customers, Fortune 500 companies. So these are some of the companies actually using our stuff. Microsoft is a customer, McDonald's is a customer. Some other guys here I'm not allowed to say are our customers, but all of these big companies, they are very different, right? Walmart is very different from McDonald's or kayak.com. They're in very different businesses, but they all rely on public web data to run their business. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of what this public web data means. So when you look at the e-commerce sector, for example, take a customer like a Walmart. They have, thousands or tens of thousands of SKUs, of part numbers. How do they know how to price them? In the old days, you would have someone, if you had a grocery store, you would have a kid run to the other guy and write down on a piece of paper what the prices are, and then you would know how to price your produce, right? Today, in the days of internet e-commerce, this is not not feasible. So the only way to do this is to collect this public web data at scale. And look at this web page, and this is examples from Amazon. The price of a product, okay, the reviews of the product, whether it's in stock or not, all of this is public information. There's nothing secret about it. What we do in Bright Data is we collect this information at scale, and we convert a website which was built for humans, okay, we convert it into a very nice tabular kind of format that can then be ingested into pricing systems of different retailers, into machine learning algorithms, into financial institutions models and things like that. So this is public web data. The price of this headset, $37.97, is not a secret. It's the same for everyone. And what we do with Bright Data is we collect this and millions of other prices every day from many, many websites. And then we turn around and give this public web data in a nice structured format to, say, other e-tailers who can then know how to price their products. Okay, so this is an example of public web data. Another example is in the travel industry. Okay, I don't know if you guys know, but the way the travel industry works is that prices for the same flight can be different based on where you're buying the ticket from. Okay, so we have in Bright SDK millions of IP addresses in different countries around the world. And when every one of you goes on, let's say, kayak.com and searches for a flight, the reason that table takes a lot of time to fill up, you probably know that the table takes a lot of time to fill up with results, is that we search for the price of this flight from 50 different countries in real time, send this information back, and then the lowest price is presented to you, the consumer. So everything on the internet that has to do with price comparison is using our type of technology to find the best price for a specific product, if the transaction is done from different countries around the world. So this is another example of public web data. The time, price, and duration of a flight, the destination, and the departure point are all publicly available information. The trick is to get this information, collect it, and present it in a nice format that can be ingested into other systems. I think that's it. I mean, we have the summary slide here just to repeat everything, right? We talked about between 2 to 3 extra cents per day in the US. If you talk about operating systems like Amazon and LG that we talked about earlier, and Samsung shortly, this means that a user who has not uninstalled your app for a month could be generating, let's go with a 3-cent example, 90 cents per month to you, even if they did not open the app. Okay, if they did open the app, great, you will be making additional revenue from the ads and for everything that you already have. But even if they didn't, you'll be making this revenue on operating systems like Roku and Apple TV. It's for active day. So if they have your app open, as soon as they have the app open, we consider that an active day, and you have, boom, a bump of 3 cents a day for that user. As I said, this is something that is very different from ads. So nothing is visible on the screen. It's applicable to all users in all countries. There is this dedicated opt-in screen that we talked about. And it's all done in a completely anonymous GDPR, CCPA compliant way. Because again, when we talk about public web data collection, it's super important to stress this. The collection is of web data. We have no interest and no knowledge of the user. We don't care if it's a man, woman, the age, it just doesn't matter. What we need is to have the device through which we can collect this publicly available web data. So that wraps up the presentation. Basically, if you want to have additional or get additional information, you have our website, bright-sdk.com. On that website, you will see, you actually can see me here on the bottom. There's a little video of me explaining. There are a bunch of examples of integration on connected TVs, on WebOS. There's testimonials, there's FAQs for developers, there's FAQ for users. Everything is laid out there. The system is very polished. So again, we have hundreds of developers on this. We are always happy to have a direct relationship with you, but anyone can just go there, sign up, get the integration documents, and submit their app for approval by our compliance team and start making money. The integration of this Bright SDK is something that takes a day, two, maybe, if you throw in the gross time, including testing and lunch and everything. So that kind of wraps up the presentation from my perspective. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Yeah, thanks, Ariel. It's very interesting. I think a really clever idea. The idea for folks as viewers to participate in the whole kind of supply chain process, right? I'm adding value to this process as a viewer and getting paid somehow, either paid by watching less ads or some other sorts of rewards. What I'm maybe a little dense here. What's happening in the background is what I'm curious about. So
okay,
what is it? Are you using my processor? Are you using
all right?
why
So this
is
is
it that you're paying me to do basically nothing?
Yeah, so this is a bit more technical, but I'll try to describe it nonetheless. When people opt into Bright SDK, they have a process. So one of basically our software running in the background with their app. It doesn't do anything. It basically waits. It just listens and waits. If we have a customer who wants to get information, let's say that someone is in New York City, okay? And we need to know what is the price of, I don't know, Domino's Pizza in New York City.
Bye.
Then if that device is online, that person who is, say, watching a movie in the background without them feeling anything, our application would be getting a request from our servers telling that device to go to, I don't know, say dominospizza.com and find the price of a pizza, get that information, which could be just a few bytes, for example, I don't know, $12.99, and send that back to our servers. And then from that point on, that device, from our perspective, kind of goes back to sleep. So it doesn't do anything. So this is called a proxy. It's basically the device serves as a proxy. It gets a request from our servers. It redirects that request out to the internet, to the website. Again, the website is just any typically major e-commerce website. And then the response that comes back from the website is sent back to our servers, and that's it. Nothing is stored on the device. We don't use any information identifying the user or the device or anything like that. It's kind of as I said, it's a proxy.
I see. Okay, so and you need to have devices of whatever they are in different geographies, because so that you can actually you can pull that you can get that information that's local for that device.
That's right. I mean, the most obviously the most important market is in the North American market. That's where we have the most devices. That's where we have a lot of demand. But we actually can monetize quite effectively, even in territories where traditionally the monetization is very poor. So if you go to, I don't want to pick on specific countries, but I don't know, Indonesia, okay? Indonesia ad CPMs are very low, typically, because the ads displayed in Indonesia are in Indonesian for Indonesian customers with Indonesian purchasing power of Indonesian products, right? Yeah. Whereas when we use these devices, in many cases, this is used by large customers who need to do important things. For example, purchase a plane ticket, okay? So we are able to pay or to monetize these countries very effectively, much more effectively than ads. Doesn't mean you need to stop with ads. You're just gonna make more money with Bright SDK. So yes, that's that is true.
Would there be the potential for different tiers maybe as a viewer? So is there a way for me to I'm gonna opt in, but I want to go all in opting in? So you can is there an opportunity that level 1 opt-in is, I see 3 ads. Level 2 opt-in is I see 1 ad. And then, like the platinum level of opting in is I just have no ads at all.
Yeah. from our perspective, an opt-in is an opt-in. Okay, we don't have tiers. We don't have tiers, but the way to ask the user to opt in, when to ask, what to offer, how to ask, all of that is up to the publisher. So it can be done in any way that the customer or that the publisher sees fit. For example, let's say that they, based on their history, they have someone who finished who is about to finish a trial of an SVOD service, and is unlikely to subscribe based on their behavior so far. Okay, so in all likelihood, that user is going to go away. It is possible to say, hey, you know what? If you opt into this, I'll give you, I don't know, 3 more days or something like that. So this is a tool that smart publishers can use in different ways to complement their monetization. It's really up to the publisher to decide when and how and what to offer in exchange for the opt-in. But from our perspective, an opt-in is an opt-in.
Okay. Now, does I understand the technology is kind of an SDK that my app is talking to. Does it require an app for this to work? Could I just do it on a web-based, a browser-based interface?
It's a good question. No, you need to have an app. Actually, you were not entirely accurate. There is no interaction between our SDK and the app. There's no interaction whatsoever. It kind of runs in the background in parallel. We don't even know what the app is or what it does. It doesn't matter. And in fact, we don't even want to know. It's not helpful. It's best not to know. But yes, an app is required. So when you go to a website, you're going through a web browser, but the SDK is actually a piece of code that needs to run. And the only way to do that is as part of a native app. Any of the platforms that we talked about will support this. But you said earlier something about the user getting something. It's interesting also to look at this from a greater good point of view, because all the stuff that we use all the time, okay, on e-commerce, on travel sites, when you book a hotel, when you you go to a brand. Those brands, for example, use our stuff to find counterfeit sites to take them down. So this is something that's driving many things that we are using every day. It's kind of under the hood. People don't understand it. But the way you get the best price on Kayak or on some e-commerce comparison sites or all of these things could not work today without public web data collection. There's no way to do this in a scalable way.
Yeah, I had no idea. So maybe it's time I caught up and got with the program. But
we are talking here in the context of OTT apps but just to give some perspective, this stuff has been running on iOS for probably 2 years, on Windows for something like 5 years. We have many millions of devices on each of those platforms. So we think OTT is actually very good. We like OTT from a technical perspective. I'm going to put my technical hat on right now, because many OTT devices are always connected with broadband, right? Because that's what streaming is. You need to have broadband for that. And they're typically what we call always on. So that, from our perspective, is valuable. We like those devices. It's very different, for example, from an iPhone, which goes online and offline at irregular intervals. It's very hard to predict. But if you have, let's say, a Roku, it's connected. So we like OTT from a technical perspective, but we also like OTT because I think the customer value is very clear. For example, what I showed you here about skipping the first ad slot. Okay, people are used to clicking play, and there's always this anger of, oh damn, I have to sit through these ads now. And suddenly you have an app that doesn't do that. That's great. People are not, they notice. So this has a very direct impact on, users' retention, the ability to consume more content, to engage with the app for longer periods of time, maybe to subscribe if it's an SVOD later. It's very clear what you get as a consumer. We kind of hit a pain point and do away with that pain point, which is good for consumers, but at the same time, from a publisher perspective, you end up, having net plus plus. So why not?
Yeah. But I am getting paid less because I'm not showing these ads. So in this diagram, I'm glad you wrote this back up. In this diagram, I'm getting paid for video ad in pre-roll, and then the next video ad in the interstitial, and the next video ad. And then in the Bright SDK model, I'm not getting paid for those videos. So it has to be.
But Eric, this I'm glad you brought this up because I wasn't very clear. When we say lifetime monetization, this means that this happens for the very first instance. Okay. But from that point on, our stuff runs in the background. It can run in the background while you're watching the video, or it can even run in the background while you're not watching the video at all, if it's LG or Fire TV. And we make the additional revenue. So for the subsequent plays, you can do, I'm going to go here. For subsequent plays, if you want, you can go back to this and give that benefit that we talked about only for one instance, if that's what you decide as a publisher. Okay. And then all throughout this flow, which is the normal flow of video content, you have the additional revenue because the consent has already been given in the past. So that's what I meant by publishers being able to play with this in any way they want to play with revenue and retention. You may want to skip the first pre-rolls always, or maybe you want to do it 5 times, or maybe you want to give 20 minutes free, or completely up to you. But from the moment you get that users opt in, they don't feel any pain because it runs in the background, and you can decide if you want to be more generous or less generous.
So there's no impact on my processing power, or I'm not going to see any delays and more like buffering or anything like that because of this.
Excellent question. You're good at this. Yes. No, absolutely not. So we have our own technology to monitor, for example, the CPU usage. If we see that this is kind of a weak device that's now trying to render some 4K content, it's kind of struggling, our process is going to go to sleep so as to never cause any glitching or any buffering. Okay, never. That's the whole point. Also, from a bandwidth perspective, which is something you didn't ask, the bandwidth that we take per day, because there is some bandwidth that's going on, right? We get some stuff from the internet, we send it back to our server. The total is something like 50 megabytes for a 24-hour period. 50 megabytes is like, I don't know, 1 minute streaming of Netflix or YouTube. It's the bandwidth is not material. But no, bottom line is no impact on user performance. You would simply not be able to tell if this is running or not after you opted in. I remind everyone here that people can always opt out. So if they want to go to their app's settings, they can go and they're going to have a QR code. It explains what's happening, and they can just switch it off, and it's fine.
Yeah. You talk about pricing and prices, and it sounds like that's where the Bright SDK is being used quite a bit. Are there other applications for this methodology, for this other than pricing that you're either doing now or pursuing or thinking about?
Well, I'm happy to entertain any if we come across new things, but from a video perspective, these are the main use cases that we've seen. When you talk about games and apps on PC and things like that, it's very, very different. There's other things that you can maybe give the user, but from a video perspective, that's all we've seen so far. Happy to hear if anyone has any other suggestions.
Okay. Yeah, so in applying this in a fast environment, I think you kind of talked about how that would be done, similar to.
Sorry, I think I now understand the question. So in a fast environment, effectively, what if I understand correctly, this model of add content, it still applies, right? It's just that the channel is kind of continuous. So I think this still applies. Another thing that you could do as a fast operator is to say, I'm going to give you, 20 minutes of uninterrupted viewing, or maybe open up some channel that you didn't have before. It's completely up to the, I mean, the value or the benefit to the user is completely up to the publisher. There is no technical correlation between what we do and what the user gets. It's just, we need to be told the user has said yes, and then we go into operation. But once the user said yes, what they get in exchange for that is completely up to the publisher.
So it definitely applies to FAST in the same way that it would apply to any other video. But in order for you to leverage it as in FAST, you have to be the app owner, in a way, the app publisher.
I agree. Yes, if you have a FAST service and that is powered by someone else's platform, you need to have our stuff integrated into that platform. You cannot just, switch it on yourself, right? So you may have a content, you may have a brand that you build up, and you have user acquisition, and you have an app that's running. If that's using some other person, some other company's platform, our stuff needs to be in the platform.
Oh yeah. But as long as I have my own app that's being launched independently, then I should be able to build your technology into it.
If you are an independent app developer, you can certainly put this in yourself. It's very easy. If you're using some other apps, some other platform, it needs to be in the platform. I think the good news is that we are, because this is, this makes a lot of sense in the OTT space, we are getting more and more platforms to join us. So I told you about Castify, I told you about Otera. There's more that are coming soon.
Yeah.
So it's quite possible that people that we have on the call here are using someone's platform, and they either already have it or they are in the process of implementing it now.
Yeah. And Roku, Roku's got thousands of apps. If I'm running on Roku, then that's a platform that I could use potentially.
Yes, Roku is actually the easiest integration that we have. It's like ridiculous. It's probably maybe 25 minutes for someone who knows Roku to add this to the app.
Okay, terrific. Well, this has been a great discussion, Ariel. Thank you so much for joining us. And how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
So I apologize for not including my email here. It's just Ariel at Bright SDK, but the website is the best way to do this. We can be contacted on the website, but I think it's very easy to just click start now, create an account. You will automatically see the dashboard. You'll see all the reports that you get in terms of revenue and number of devices and things like that. And obviously all the implementation documents that are there. There is tons of information on the website. All of these videos are really, all of them, they're all about 2 minutes long, and they all show very crisp kind of examples that make this very easy to get. If people want to go deeper in the FAQ section, there is, again, tons of information technically and also commercially, and also maybe most important, the one that says here on the top, it says for users. I don't know if this is coming across. It's kind of small, but for users is very interesting. This is something that we added everywhere in the app where Bright SDK is mentioned. There is a QR code which points users to this section, because we, as part of our complete commitment to transparency, we want to be very, very open. If you go to the for users section, you will see this in very plain English. What is this thing? What is it doing? What is this consent screen? What am I agreeing to? Are you collecting my information? All of those things are laid out there for users, and they're also explained in the regular FAQ section for technical people, for business people. But for users, it's actually a very interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I can see there's I understand what you're doing now, and obviously there is no user data being collected, but it's a real easy thing a hard thing, I guess, for people to kind of put their minds around. It seems like what you're doing is collecting my data, and everybody's so worried about that. There's a lot of concerns for obvious reasons, and so I think that must be a little bit of a hurdle for you all to help people really understand what you're doing, that it isn't, you're not collecting user data.
That is true. That's also why, again, why we want, look, the most important thing for us in Bright Data is being completely transparent and to have business continuity, to make sure, we have customers. Okay, when you're talking about large financial institutions in the US, when they collect public web data, they are actually obligated by the SEC to provide the data sources that they use. So they check us that we collect this public web data with informed consent. That's why there's this opt-in screen. The opt-in screen is very clear. You're not tracked. There is no personal information collected, etc. With all of this said, we still see 70% of people saying yes. Okay, so it's clearly not a huge concern. I can tell you that on the OTT space, it's even less of a concern because an OTT device has no data on it. When we run our stuff on say mobile devices or on PCs, there's a lot of personal information on those devices. There even technically there could be some discussion whether it would be possible for us to look at that information or not. But on OTT devices, there's nothing, right? You have a Roku stick that has nothing. It doesn't have anything about you. So there is no. So it's really has not been an issue on OTT, and even on the other platforms where there is personal information. I think that again, with all of this transparency, we still see that people get it after a while.
And you're not tracking what people are watching either. That's
why I mentioned earlier.
Another concern too.
I know that there's what you guys call ACR, right? Automated content recognition.
Yeah.
We don't do any of that. We don't even know if they're watching. We just know that the app is running. So we try to distance ourselves from that because there's absolutely there are only downsides in having that information available. So we just don't know. And I'll give you an example of the non-tracking aspect of it. Let's say that you have Fire TV app, okay, an OTT app, and your user installs it and they opt in, and then they uninstall the app, and they install it again, and they opt in again. From our perspective, these are two different users. We can't even know that it's the same person, and we don't care. And we don't care. We just don't want to know.
Right. Well, Ariel, thanks again. Super interesting. I've learned a lot today, just about how a lot of this stuff works in the background that I didn't even know about. So thanks for opening my eyes and our eyes to all of that. Yeah, it's for those that are running apps in the space, many of our members. I think it's just an interesting and potentially valuable commercialization opportunity. So thanks again, Ariel, for being with us today. And thanks for everybody that was in our audience for attending and for your continued support of OTTX. As always, we recorded the session and it's going to be available on the OTTX website at OTTX.org, along with a panoply of presentations from online and in-person events over the last few years. I want to remind everybody about our last event of 2023. It's actually 3 events, all taking place on the same day, which is December 14th. We're going to kick things off in the morning with our 2nd annual Diversity Summit, offering presentations, panels, and discussion groups for people in underrepresented groups in our industry. It's going to be followed by our awards presentation and executive luncheon, honoring MediaPlay News' 40 most important people in streaming. The day wraps up with the OTTX Industry Strategic Review, where major research institutions will provide critical analysis touching all sectors of the streaming industry. We'll also hear from leading venture capitalists and members of the financial community who will be offering investment advice and discussing the effects of the writers and actors strikes. So we're looking forward to getting our OTTX community together one more time for the end of the year. Hope to see you all there. Thanks again to Bright SDK for today's webinar, and to all of our members. Make this session and many of our and all of our programs and activities possible. For those of you that are not a member of yet, we'd love to talk with you. So you can check us out at info@OTTX.org. Send an email to info@OTTX.org or check out our website. That's the conclusion of today's webinar. Thanks everybody for being here and being a part of our community. Thanks again to Ariel and Bright SDK. We'll see you all. We'll see you all soon.
Bye. Take care. Bye.